Okay, I think we can slowly start. Also, more and more people are entering the room online as well. So good morning and welcome to everyone in the room and online to our event, Europe's first soil monitoring law, opportunities for policy, research and practice. This event is co-organized by Erin and EEB in the framework of the SOILL-Startup project. We will hear more about this project just in a minute. And my name is Caroline. I work for the European Environmental Bureau, which is a European network of environmental citizens organizations. Before starting with the event itself, just a few very practical points. First, there's Wi-Fi. You can find it at the end, at the back of the room with the passcode. The bathroom is on your right-hand side when you step out of the elevator, and the emergency rooms, emergency exits are there and there. So just so you are aware, this is a hybrid event. So we have, in addition to the people in the room, we have, well, more and more people entering, but I think earlier it was about 70 people online. And during the event, there will be multiple moments for questions. So we will do our best to address them, but yeah, remember them and we will come for them. For people in the room, you can raise your hand. For people online, please put your questions in the chat and my colleagues will keep an eye on it. So without further ado, those were the practical points. We can start with the event. So thank you so much for being here. And I now invite my colleague, Sergey Moros, from the EEB Policy Manager for Nature, to share some opening words with you. Thank you.
Good morning. I also would like to welcome you very warmly on behalf of the Soil Project, EEB and Erin, to this event. This event comes at a very, very crucial point in time. And we are very pleased to see that the role that healthy soil play for biodiversity, for circular economy, for carbon resilience, for carbon mitigation, for water resilience is absolutely fundamental. And that recognition is becoming more and more prominent across all sectors of society. It's obviously been already the case among researchers, among the civil society. Now a lot of progressive business comes on board. A lot of citizens also want their soil to be healthy and having strong laws protecting and urging action to restore it. And so there is so the momentum is definitely there, and we very much welcomed the one of the Green Deal deliverables, the proposal for the soil monitoring law. It went through a very complicated, democratic decision-making process. Obviously, a lot of compromises have been made. A lot of opinions have been taken on board. A lot of organizations have supported and engaged with their ideas and their priorities into the decision-making process. So we are very, very close to finally getting a first EU-wide soil law, giving our really precious resource like healthy soils the level of protection that and level of action that it needs, and that we've had for air and water for a while. So and that's also why I very much welcome the focus of this event now, looking at opportunities for policy, for research, for practice, that we really, really hope we need to start. And we have really good examples when a lot of stakeholders, member states, citizens, NGOs can really come together and can really make things happen in a way. So I think this is why we really see this as a very, very huge opportunity. The need there is clear. We are very close to getting the regulatory framework, and now the work really will need to start. And I think I have to mention a little bit the changed context in which we also find ourselves. And a lot of the societal priorities that are changing, a lot of the big geopolitical shifts that are going on. We have the war in the middle of Europe. So all of that, of course, is also having an impact. And then on the other hand, we also see all the records being broken this summer. We see the fires that were raging. We see the extreme events that are made much worse by climate change happening on a daily basis. So the destruction of nature, destruction of soil also cannot continue. So we really need to be solving the short-term and long-term societal problems together. So in this context, we still urge the decision makers to really go through the final steps in adopting the SML and highlighting that this was part of the democratic process. There were compromises that have been integrated. As NGOs, we welcome the soil monitoring law, but we also find some of those compromises that were made have made it not sufficient enough to drive that action. However, it is a step in the right direction. So it is important that it is adopted. It is important that it is in place. And as we will be discussing during the event today, we all need to come together now in really driving it forward and implementing it. So again, thank you so much for finding the time in your busy agendas for discussing some of these questions with us. And we have a lot of really, really eminent speakers. Thanks for people also joining online. And I really hope that by the end of today's sessions, you will find some of the answers to maybe some of the questions that you came with, and will be as convinced as we are how important this soil monitoring law is, and how much more urgent we need to be in protecting and restoring it, because we all very, very much depend on it. So I just kind of very briefly, I wanted to go through some of the agenda points today. So you can see that with the opening words, that's me. So that agenda point is done. And then we'll also hear some of the messages from European Parliament. We'll also have an introduction to the Soil project, in the framework of which we all gathered today. We'll break for coffee, so there will be opportunities for networking. So get those business cards ready, and any bilateral contacts you want to have with the speakers, please use the coffee breaks for that. And then we'll also have additional speakers and have also a panel discussion for an hour, and also present a number of funding opportunities that are still coming up. We aim to close just after 12. And there will be light lunch and drinks for you to continue networking. So I think without any further ado, I would really welcome Caro to read the statement. Unfortunately, Annalisa Corrado wanted to be with us, but then there were other engagements for her that she's not in Brussels at the moment, but she sent a statement that Caro will read on our behalf.
Thank you, Sergi. Yes, indeed, we had asked Annalisa Corrado, who is Italian member of the European Parliament and shadow rapporteur for the S&D group, to say a few words at this event. However, she then decided only 2 weeks ago to join the Global Summit Flotilla, which is now on its way to Gaza. So the flotilla, for your background information, is a coordinated non-violent fleet of mostly small vessels sailing from ports across the Mediterranean to open a humanitarian corridor and to protest against the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So despite these circumstances, Ms. Corrado has shared the following message to you that I will read out loud. Dear friends, let me sincerely thank the European Environmental Bureau and the European Regions Research and Innovation Network for inviting me to this workshop. I deeply regret not being able to join you in person today. The reason for my absence is that I am currently taking part in the humanitarian mission of the Global Summit Flotilla, which is sailing across the Mediterranean to bring aid to the people of Gaza. At such a dramatic moment, I believe it is essential to stand in solidarity, to build bridges and reaffirm the centrality of human rights and peace at a time of growing geopolitical tensions and serious violations of international law. This journey carries both a practical mission of delivering relief and a symbolic one, showing humanity and the power of participation where too often there is silence or indifference. Turning to your discussions today, as we all know, soil is a precious, non-renewable resource, vital for food, health, biodiversity, and climate resilience. Healthy soils means healthier food, safer ecosystems, and stronger resilience against extreme weather events. Nevertheless, to date, the EU still lacks adequate legislation to protect this resource. Now, after years of negotiations, we finally have a provisional agreement on the first ever EU Soil Monitoring and Resilience Directive. In just a few weeks, the Parliament should give its final green light. This will provide Europe with a long-awaited legal framework to protect and restore our soils, a historic step forward to fight soil degradation, land take, and the illegal dumping of waste, phenomena that remain widespread in Europe and have left deep scars in my own country. I remain fully committed to working alongside all of you to make sure this directive becomes a living tool for healthier soils and stronger communities. I wish you a very fruitful and inspiring discussion today, and I look forward to joining you in person on a future occasion. With warm regards, Annalisa Corrado, Member of the European Parliament, S&D Group, Shadow Rapporteur on the Soil Monitoring Law. So thank you very much to Ms. Corrado for this really important statement and for her political engagement. I will now give over to the co-organizers of this event, Joanna Comperda and Gianpiero Petruziello from ERIN, who will present you the Mission Soil project, SOILL-Startup, which is hosting this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And good morning, everyone. I'm Gianpiero Petruziello, and I'm here with my colleague, Joanna from ERIN, the European Regions Research and Innovation Network. We are co-organizer of this event together with the EIB, and we are both partner of the SOILL-Startup project. First of all, also from our side, a really huge thanks to the speakers for accepting the invitation and to all the participants joining here in Brussels. And we have a lot of participants joining online from all over Europe, so huge thanks. And in the next minute, we are going to touch upon the main elements of the soil mission and the SOILL-Startup projects and how SOILL-Startup is contributing to the mission. I'm not going to go into the details because after us, we are going to have a representative from the European Commission, from the Mission Soil Secretariat, that is in a much better position than me to speak and provide an overview of the soil mission. But we believe it's still important to say a couple of words to frame today's discussion. So the challenge you might be aware of, there is more than 60% of the European soils who are considered unhealthy. And the goal of the ambition of the European soil strategy is to have healthy and resilient soil by 2050 in all Europe. So it's an important target, and we need, of course, a regulatory framework, an upcoming soil monitoring law, but we also need resources in research and innovation to drive innovation and to deliver concrete solutions to achieve this objective. So here, the soil mission is one of the 5 Horizon Europe missions, and the main goal is to establish a network of 100 living labs and lighthouses to lead the transition toward healthy soils by 2030. Here in the slide, you can also see the specific objective of the mission, to which the living labs are contributing depending on their focus. And soil, the SOILL-Startup project, so the project in which we are involved and in which is organized this event, is supporting the 100 living labs. At this stage, we have around 45 living labs who already kick off their activity. You can see here the timeline, and some others will come. So there will be also opportunities for funding and for additional stakeholders to get involved. So the SOILL-Startup project is supporting both the existing living labs and the upcoming living labs and the applicants. And here in this slide, you can see in the map in dark blue, the second wave of living labs, and in the other colors, the different projects of the first wave of the living labs, and where they are geolocalized. And in the panel discussion of today, we're going to also have a representative from Lilas for Soil project. So the living labs are not mythological creators. They do exist. There are people behind, committed people, and after we're gonna also hear some examples on how they're carrying their activity. But now I'm gonna give the floor on to my colleague Joanna to explain how SOILL-Startup and in which way is supporting these objectives of the SOIL mission. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Also from my side, I will walk you through today through the SOILL-Startup project. And no, this is not a typo in the SOIL name. Double L stands for Living Labs, exactly. Yes. So our project contributes to the goals of the mission SOIL by supporting, promoting, and fostering enlargement of the network of 100 SOIL mission living labs and lighthouses that are leading the transition towards healthy soils by 2030. Our project is coordinated by ENOL, which is European Network of the Living Labs, and it brings together 47 partners across 18 countries, so quite a huge initiative. We are running, and we will be running until 2030, but the project will be executed by 3 consecutive and interconnected projects: SOILL-Startup, SOILL-Step-Up, and SOILL-Scale-Up. And right now we are on the first phase, so the bit of the preparation phase, and also where we try to co-design the one-stop shop structure, and we are co-designing it with the first wave of the living labs. Currently, the first wave is counting 25 living labs. And now, what is our mission? First of all, we want to empower existing network of the mission SOIL Living Labs by providing different tools, guidance, networking opportunities. Then we also want to support and onboard future and current applicants that are interested in setting up the living labs or lighthouse under the mission SOIL. In the current calls or in the future calls for proposals. Then we also would like to engage the wider soil health community, and also mostly by creating opportunities for networking, for sharing best practices, knowledge, expertise. And this event is one of those places where we can do that. Then finally, we would like to foster like a collaborative ecosystem that unites all the stakeholders, policymakers, researchers, practitioners, etc. Who is our target audience apart from the mission SOIL Living Labs? These are also applicants that I already mentioned, those ones that are currently submitting their proposals, but also those that would like to do it in the future calls. Then our target audience is also European SOIL Living Labs. These are all those living labs that are already existing, and they are existing beyond the mission SOIL, but their objectives and are very much aligned with the mission SOIL criteria and objectives. And then we also have emerging SOIL living labs. So these are all potential and emerging initiatives, living labs or lighthouses initiatives that are not yet fully aligned with the mission objectives, but they would like to be. And then finally, we have this wider SOIL and living labs community. So these are all the individuals and all the organizations that are interested by this topic. And I guess a lot of you are. What are we focus on in terms of the content? These are, first of all, the living lab concept and methods. And here we would like to cover like all the living labs life cycle, principles, methods, governance, and also long-term financial and like sustainability. Then we have soil technical themes. And here we, for example, we have among many others, we have soil monitoring. And then finally, we have all the transversal and cross-cutting aspects like stakeholder engagement, digital innovation, and so on. I'm not getting into details due to the time limits. In which way we help soil health living labs? As I mentioned, we are running the one-stop shop platform that wants to support them in many different ways. For example, through coordination, through training and capacity building, engagement and promotion, monitoring and evaluation, then knowledge sharing and networking through different events. And finally, we also created a Soil Hub, which is amazing online platform, kind of a central repository for different tools, guidance, materials, best practices. But also there is a space, online space for your exchange if you want to join. There are some thematic groups that allows the discussion and exchange. What do we offer for the wider soil community? So for each stakeholder, we have, maybe you can find something different for yourself. But as I mentioned, we have this central access point to the knowledge about the living labs. Apart from the catalog and the map of the living labs, we have also like updated information about their activities. We have news and updates for different events, opportunities for networking, and so on. We also, on the Soil Hub, we are sharing different methods, solutions, and data from which you can benefit, but also you can co-create them. So we want to also learn from you, and we hope that it will be like something that we can create together. We have a lot of collaboration and exchange opportunities. Soil Hub that I already mentioned, in which you can register yourself. And then mostly for the applicants, we have Soil Help Desk that can address all the questions regarding the calls. And yes, so I would like to invite you to join our community and like co-create our collaborative ecosystem. How can you do it? You can scan the QR code, or you can also take it from the reception desk. We have like a nice business cards that you can also plant afterwards with some seeds. And then you can register to the stakeholder mapping form. And finally, if you want to know more, then you can follow our website, our social media. Also, there's opportunity to become a soil mentor. So all those information you can find on our website. Thank you so much. And I give the floor back to Caroline.
Thank you so much, Joanna and Giampiero. We will now move on from this introductory session to the next thematic session, which will frame the issue of soil degradation, outlining the current situation of soils in Europe, and also highlighting what the European Commission and the EU in general is doing about it. There will be 3 presentations, and depending on time, we will also, after each presentation, try to take a few questions from the room and online. So if you have questions, to remember them. As a first speaker, we welcome Dr. Carlos Antonio Guerra, professor at the University of Cumbria. He focuses on ecosystem modeling with large-scale monitoring and modeling of soils and soil biodiversity. Beyond this, he works at the interface between science and policy, providing support to policymakers and governments on how to develop a national level living soil strategy. Thank you. The floor is yours, Carlos.
Good morning. So let me start with a story. The other day I was giving a talk to one of the biggest milk producers in Latin America, and another one of the biggest coffee producers in Latin America and a couple of other big companies. And after a while, a person from the audience told me, Carlos, now I got it. And what they got it was that they were selling soil in the form of milk. They were selling soil in the form of coffee, and they were selling soil in the form of everything else. And we all consume soil in the form of something that we put into our bodies. And unless we think in this way, we will not have a good economic model to actually protect soils in a sustainable way. Yeah, I guess it's what we're supposed to be. And what I would like to start by saying is that, as the first speaker said, there was a lot of negotiation, but we are here now. And I'm an ecosystem modeler. I will not do anything without a good monitoring system. And if you ask me personally, is this the best one? It's not, but it is a monitoring system that provides, or has the aim to provide, good, reliable data on soils for us to understand what we are putting in our bodies. Because the pesticides that you consume with your apple, they also go to the soil and they also contaminate the plant that gives you the next apple. So even if you don't apply any pesticides to the apple next year, you will still consume pesticides because of what is. So what we have at the moment started already in 2006, sorry, with the Lucas program, and already allowed us to understand a bit of what is happening with soils across Europe. As said before, it's estimated 60% of soils are in some type of, let's say, degradation status. This is the work that we try to do, looking at it from ecosystem level perspective to a healthy soil perspective, to also highlight the amount of soils that are also in good ecological status, that have good properties and are also in a state that require attention, not from the restoration perspective, but from the sustainability aspect of it. We just saw the Living Labs initiative being highlighted here. I just want you to imagine for 1 second, if we live 10 years from now in a future where lighthouses, so these farms, these properties that have for some reason really good good quality of soils or good soil health, that can function as a hub for other farmers that within the same production system don't have good quality of soils, but that they can use them as inoculators for that. Imagine a future where this inoculation is not controlled by big companies and has to be regionalized. So the farmer now has an active, something that they can sell. So the soil, and this is the trick, has to become or has to transform from a production factor to an economic factor. Once this is done, then the farmer, the producer, the landowner can see the soil as a real economic active that it has to protect, it has to sustainably use, because it can hold its income for a longer time. So if you see here, it's true that many of the soils of Europe are in, let's say, a degraded state or less good state, but it's also true that there are many other soils in Europe that are in a state that we could conform with it, or that we could have specific strategies to eventually improve it. Although what you see here is for agricultural areas, what the current system that we have of monitoring soils in Europe allows us to do is to estimate across Europe in an integrated way, and this is only an estimation, where are the soils that have accumulation of problems. So there's a really nice research paper published in 2019 that stated, or that actually showed, that if you just count degradation factors, yeah? So you don't have to know what they are, just count them. Just by counting the degradation factors, you have a complete correlation to the ecological status of the soil. And what you see here is just counting. It's this number of degradation factors per unit of area. And you can see is that within this degradation, within the degradation that was the 60% or whatever number it was, there's a lot of nuance on what that degradation actually means. And there's a lot of nuance on the impacts and restoration potential that we have to consider. Another aspect is that we can already track, and this is the case of soil erosion. By the way, part of the work that is being shown here is the work of the Joint Research Center or of colleagues collaborating with them. And this is a massive interaction between researchers across Europe that already exists. So I'm really hopeful that once this is passed, that we are in the next stage of what type of research can be done across Europe. And what you see here is a distribution of erosion. But what I want you to come to a census is that if you are like me and you're a modeler and you try to model to the past and to the future, unfortunately, what we see is that there's only one path, one future path that actually can reduce this factor of erosion. So now multiply this by the number of degradation factors that you all know and you all fight for, pollution, whatever contamination, anything that you are the advocate for will have a scenario like this. Either some of them will have more than one future scenario where this can be improved. In the case of erosion, this is not the case, which means that either we use these tools to improve the solutions that we have for the future, our innovation, our research, create sustainable solutions, or we are in the deadlock where we are just degrading our soils constantly. The problem here, and in the beginning of the day, I was talking with Esther and just discussing, well, this because this is, I was explaining to her that in a country like Portugal, this is an environmental law, yeah? But the expertise is all on the Ministry of Agriculture because they organize the researchers for long, yeah? So you have the Ministry of Environment with the obligation to do such a system, but the expertise is all outside, yeah? So in this sense, this means that potentially the system can be created for agriculture. And we were just saying that, well, it cannot be, has to be beyond that. One of the reasons why it has to be beyond that is what you see here. So without many explanations, just look at the dotted lines. You see it for forest, woodland, grassland, and so on, yeah? So what we would like to see, so this is the comparison between the same system inside and outside a protected area. And we all kind of agree that protected areas should, improve or should have better conditions for nature, yeah? So more or less we are all in agreement, I hope. So what you would like to see is all those black dots going up, so above this dotted line, and that the vertical line would not touch this dotted line. That's what we would like to see. And unfortunately, as you can see there, not all the dots are above the dotted line, which means that if we have, some effects are positive, some effects are negative. But what we don't see is we don't see any of those vertical lines not touching this dotted line, which means that the results up and down, they are not significant, which means that our protected areas are either not protecting the places where we have the highest quality of soils, the highest, uniqueness of soils, or that our protected areas do not have management strategies that are dedicated to soils and that they, let's say, think that by protecting a forest for the bird, they are also protecting the forest for the soil. And this is not actually the case. So we have to make sure that the message that we all eat soil moves beyond the eating part and that we all, use soil in our lives in the form of wood, in the form of heating, in the form of many other things that need protection, in the form of landscape. Yeah. So part of what we see is because we have a specific type of soil in a specific area that we enjoy going because it's quiet, because it's nature. So unfortunately, research is showing us that we don't have that. But at the same time, and this was not what is in the law in the end, but this is what I would like to see in the law, let's put it like this, is a system of ecological status for soils. But independently of how you figure it out, what is now currently in the law is a 3 stages or 3 steps approach. Independently of that, what I would argue is for us, because it's what also research tells us, is that we have to have different strategies for the good part and for the bad part of this system. While for the bad part is easy for us to understand, we have to restore, we have to identify, we are geared up to improve whatever is degraded out there and to classify what is heavily contaminated and something as lost. But I think we are not geared up yet to also look at what is good and provide real strategies to maintain it, to create an economic model that really maintains that. And this is another level of research that needs to happen. So we are all, so we, when I say we, my colleagues, we are all looking at modeling, at chemical analysis, at whatever ecology, but we are typically not so good on the mechanistic aspect of how economy works. And without that aspect, it's also, I would say, a real danger that we face in the end. So for the soil mission, for the next stage, I would really think that we have to find out these new economic models that allow for a sustainable use of the green part of that scheme. That's it for me. I think I mentioned the time, right?
Thanks so much for this really, really interesting presentation. We have a few minutes for questions, so I will first look in the room, and I already see a hand there.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Thank you very much for the presentation. So if I just take exactly what I understood as the core message, then so you from the research part indeed can and want to model it from a more economic perspective. Does that mean, and if so, how can we, for example, you say the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment, can we bring the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs in the picture? So from a government perspective, they need to be involved. And from the private sector, how can we involve companies? Because my fear would be that it takes a while to develop these economic models and start to understand them and then feel like we're ready to present them. But let's try to maybe involve some companies. I know there's one or two good companies that do look at soil. The large majority won't understand really what it means for them. But can we just, and this is maybe a question for you or for in general, I don't know, I'm just, how can we involve the private sector and the counterpart, like in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, for example, to really be at the core of the discussion?
Yeah. So the how, I think it will depend on the member state, for example, in our particular case. But what I think first, it's possible. Let's start with that. First, it's possible. Second, I don't think it has to start with necessarily has to start with the private sector. And the reason why I'm saying this is that there is a lot of legislation that can be passed to promote this type of new economic models. You know, for example, it's just something as simple as you can only use inocula that are produced in your region. If a legislation like this would be passed, this means that even big companies would have to adapt to that first. Second, they have to source the soil, so the actual material from the local region, whatever it is. This means that now the farmers have an incentive to have better soils just by doing that, yeah. And if it is a region that is agriculturally active, so that you have, for example, in north of Portugal, we have a vineyards region, yeah. So this is a really actively region from that perspective. If that would happen, you would see vineyards fighting for having the best soil, because then the companies would buy from them the inoculant. So sometimes there are some tricks that we can put into the wheels to improve that. And I'm not saying that this is the solution. I'm just saying that this is one potential path.
Yes.
Hello, Marketa Krejci from the European Parliament. Could you elaborate a bit on when you do see the difference between the financial support for restoration and incentives for changes in the land management practices?
Yeah. So so first of all, we should have incentives. Let's start with that. And because I think the penalties would potentially be useful, but probably not at this stage. And incentives for me means that you would have a mechanism to incentivize the potential loss of revenue from, let's say, implementing more sustainable measures in the short term. But incentives also means that you would have extension services that provide farmers, land users, landowners with management strategies that are adequate. So one of the things that we see from research is that the gap between the land owner and what we think are the sustainable practices is so big. And the reason for it to be so big is that there's no one in the middle actually translating this to the practice of that specific setting of this landowner. Because the landowner just wants to ask to the world, hey, give me the practice. And it has to be the same practice everywhere, but this is not true. Because that's why from this side, it's always, the answer always starts with, it depends. And this is a killer. So that from it depends, the person doesn't hear anything else because it depends, yeah? So we need someone in the middle, and this will require investment from the finance aspect. That's true, the colleague was saying before. This requires governments, organizations like yours, be in the middle translating this. So that's why what I mean by that.
Thank you so much. Maybe quickly, is there a question online? No, not for the moment.
There were two other questions.
Sorry, because we have a bit of a time limit, but
Hello, Marie Latour from Biotech 22, a Bulgarian SME working on soil restoration solutions. Does it mean that so soil is going to get a different value depending on this health? Could we imagine a future where we have a label like we have for energy efficiency that enables to compare a piece of land to another according to A, B, C, D, E, or whatever other way of doing? We know the good aspects of energy efficiency label.
I'm not sure about that, just because it can potentially provoke distortion, market distortion, in the value of land. So we already have land prices increasing. That could also be an aspect to it. But I would say the following: a label like that. So if a government, whatever member state, implements such kind of a label, it would imply another thing. That is, there are many companies that rent land, use land for 5 years, 10 years with renting contracts and leave. And these are normal renting contracts, which means that you just have to leave the land as is without looking at the details of if the soil is depleted or not. So having such a label would imply that these contracts would have to fit this label, and would mean that the companies would have to leave it better, for example. Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you so much. Because we have two more speakers, we have to move on. But
I can answer your question later.
He's going to be in the coffee break. He's probably going to be here during the lunch as well. And potentially, I mean, there will be other moments for questions also for the other speakers. So maybe the question would fit that as well. So thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mirko Barbero, who works for the European Commission. He is team leader of the soil team at the unit Land Use and Management at DG Environment. Together with his team, he has been leading a key role in the proposal for soil monitoring law that the European Commission presented in July 2023. So in his presentation, he will outline the actions the EU is taking to address the issue of soil degradation. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. So just 10 minutes to have an overview of what is being done at EU level, policy actions on soil. Because as we said, well, as Carlos said, they are degraded. There are some figures there in the bubbles, but if we only look at what can be monetized as an impact of soil degradation, we speak of more than 50 billion a year. So this we are already paying. So this is also a factor to be taken into account for sure to move on and try to address. Not only, but degraded soil are part of the problem, and but they can be part of the solution for the big challenges we have in front of us. So to address climate change, to mitigate and adapt, and to address the biodiversity loss, the natural disasters we are witnessing, and then ensuring food security and also caring for the human health, where there is a strong link with the soil health. So that's why in the European Green Deal, it was decided to update the soil strategy, to have a new soil strategy that would take into account of this new understanding and proposing actions to address this. And one of the flagship action was to propose a law on soil. In the soil strategy, the Commission is setting a vision for soil become healthy by 2050 in the EU, because this is essential for well-being and for addressing the challenges we have in front of us. So these visions also guided the formulation and of the proposal for the law. But in the strategy, there are 90 concrete actions that you can find there, and you can even, there is a policy tracker for the implementation of this. You can find all the online, it's available for everybody, all the details of the actions that have been already implemented. This is just a selection of a few of the actions just to show how broad they are. And they include, obviously, the soil observatory, the mission soil, and then there are guidance for funding opportunities, because finance is essential to move on. And then the first assessment of soil biodiversity in the EU, and then guidelines, and then even covering excavated soils, looking at the international part. So all of this, but then I will focus maybe on the soil monitoring law. This is the strategy action tracker. You see 90 policy actions, many of them completed, others in progress. Few withdrawn, no surprise, you would know which they are. And okay, we don't have any directive yet, because the legislative process is still ongoing, but it's well advanced. As said, there is a provisional agreement, and we are waiting for the Council and the Parliament to adopt it. So this is the current situation, but we are already preparing in case of the adoption and of the implementation. Just to have an overview of the different points and the links also with the research and the opportunities that this law may bring. Well, the objectives, well, the first one is to establish a framework, monitoring framework for soil, because this will provide integrated monitoring of soil and assessment of their status, but then also the objective to maintain and improve the health of soils, and also remediating soils that are impacting negatively the human health. So these are the objectives. But then there are definitions which are very important, because we need a common language to speak a common language, and this is not yet the case. When you speak of soils, there are different ways of thinking and of speaking of soil, and then which are, I mean, not compatible, so we don't always understand each other. So this will help to set common language. Then the point 3, the monitoring and assessment. So, well, first the governance with the competent authorities, the soil districts, soil units, then a common minimum set of indicators to measure the soil health. Well, at the same time, still allowing for member states to be flexible in the way they measure and so on. And their research will help a lot, because we will need transfer functions. So we expect the mission soil to deliver this fundamental tool to be able to integrate the different national systems that already are existing. Then, well, during the negotiations, several elements were modified, especially the service and support, the certification for soil health, so the scoring and so on. This was removed as a proposal, but this doesn't prevent from any voluntary initiative in member states, for example, to try this any system for certification and for scoring of soil health. Anyway, the Commission will provide all needed support to member states in the form of a portal where to find the soil health data, of providing Copernicus data for satellite monitoring, providing a lot of guidance to member states to be able to transpose and implement the law. If we go to point 5, then we see, well, instead of sustainable soil management, which was in proposal, now we have soil resilience, okay? Support for soil health and soil resilience, which is very important to help soil managers to have the right information, to know where the funding is for them to improve the soil health and so on. And also principles for land take mitigations in terms of soil sealing and soil removal. Then a whole chapter on contaminated sites and very light reporting, just the minimum needed for transparency and for being able to evaluate the effectiveness of. So maybe another point, another link with research, the advice to be given to soil managers should be provided in a common knowledge repository. And there we will need for sure mission soil and put together all the knowledge in such a way that is usable by soil managers. And when you think to living labs, they will produce an enormous amount of new knowledge, and it would be great really to structure this so that it's easily usable also for soil managers. That's another important link. But not only looking more at the long term, medium term and long term, this is just the first step for the law. Then there will be an evaluation. Maybe we will have overdone, we will see it and then reduce. Maybe we will need more, and the evaluation will tell us, or different, and research will have the opportunity there to tell the new knowledge how we could do better legislation. So all the projects now are ongoing. They will be able to say in which direction to evolve for a better law in the future. Okay. Just a few words, timeline, just to give an idea of what we are speaking in. We will need 3 years for member states to transpose this directive. The Commission will, we'll have to provide member states with a big amount of guidance in the first year, second year, and a bit more. So we will contribute there. Then we will have the first assessment of soil health in this integrated way. In 5 years, meanwhile, we will have a register of contaminated sites set up. There are several actions, but we will need years, and the horizon is for the first evaluation after 7 years. Voilà, that's all. Well, not all, because this is not only soil policy in isolation. It's important to integrate soil policy in all the other initiatives, to remind that soil is fundamental for a medium and long-term competitiveness as well. It's the basis for a bioeconomy. As we have to think to natural credits. Water resilience is an essential component. But there are also other initiatives like the new European Bauhaus, which are linked with soil. And then there is international level. And I mean, let's not forget research that is the reason why we are here. So all the links, these links have to be nurtured and developed and to ensure the integration of soil policy in the other policies.
Thank you very much for this very, very interesting presentation. Are there any questions in the room? Sebastian, as you couldn't ask your question before.
Thank you, Caroline. It's a slight reworking of my previous question, but in terms of links with the water resilience strategy, as you pointed out, so sorry, my name is Sebastian Morin, I'm with the European water sector. So in terms of links with the European water resilience strategy, in a few years' time, when you start to get the harmonized measurements from the member states, are there any plans to cross-reference those with groundwater chemical status, for example, and try and map a little bit more the diffuse pollution pathways that we are dealing with when it comes to groundwater pollution? This is something where I think there's potential synergies that could work quite well.
Yes, thank you for the question. Indeed, very good. Well, in the soil strategy, there is a clear effort to reinforce the nexus between soil and water. In the soil monitoring law, there are clear support for this, because there are measurements for the water infiltration and absorption, so retention of soils. Member states are asked also to look at the values and what the impact would be on flooding and droughts, so to link this, and they are asked to assess this and come to conclusions. So the Commission will provide the help to them, and I'm sure that research will also help to develop what you are mentioning, because it will be very important to link the two, and the sponge effect of soil will be key, but we need to measure, we need data, we need to develop concepts and work on it together. Yes, intention is there, a lot of work to be done, and let's follow it up so that it happens.
Thank you very much. Other questions in the room? Do we have a question online?
So we have a question online from Catherine Hale. Dear Mr. Barbero, thank you for your presentation and the overview of the soil policy. I'm a researcher working on EU soil pollution policies, Horizon Europe Soil Prom. The Soil Strategy Action Tracker paints a rather positive picture when considering the number of completed actions or those in progress. How do you explain that soil degradation continues all across the EU? Is the strategy too weak and/or has not proposed effective policies, including the soil monitoring law?
Yeah, thank you also for this question. While the soil strategy clearly says voluntary action seems not to be enough, the current legislative framework seems not to be enough. So we need the soil monitoring law to improve. So, well, it's an important component. So, yeah. And this is still to be adopted. So I think the soil monitoring law will really be a key factor in changing the things and reverting the degradation and improving. So
perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In that case, we will then move to our last speaker before the coffee break. So the next speaker will be Dr. Jelena Vidovic, who is Research Program Officer at the European Commission, DG Agri, working on the Horizon Europe mission, A Soil Deal for Europe. Before joining DG Agri, she dealt with international cooperation in research and innovation at the European Commission's Joint Research Center. Thank you very much.
So, morning, everybody. It is my pleasure to greet you on behalf of the Mission Soil Secretariat. And I would actually like to start the presentation with 3 questions. Just frame what was said until now and to better position mission within our discussions. So 3 simple questions. What's the problem? Why is it important? And what are we doing about it? What is the problem? You heard from our 2 speakers. Soils are degraded, they are threatened in the EU and globally. They're degraded because of unsustainable practices, pollution, urbanization, and we also have the effects of climate change. Why is it important? You also heard from our 2 speakers. You heard the human perspective. And by the way, I may take your image and your example to quote you at my future presentations. You heard environmental perspective. You also heard economic perspective and estimate costs of soil degradation in EU exceeding 50 billion euro per year. And what are we doing about it? Mirko just presented EU policy measures, EU actions, and I'm here today to present you the mission as one of the important tools for achieving this policy objective. Start with the next slide. So actually, this is what I said just now. That's why we have a mission SOIL to support this policy. So mission is not acting alone with the EU policy that was just presented. The EU Soil Observatory represents a solid framework for soil protection in the EU. You heard about EU soil strategy. You heard about a proposal for soil monitoring law. Maybe just to say that the mission also supports other EU, other policy initiatives like nature restoration law, like a recent vision for agriculture and food that aims to ensure sustainability and competitiveness of EU food and farming sector. And when it comes to Soil Observatory, it is a long-term data and knowledge hub on soils. It has a number of objectives like supporting EU policy making, like supporting the development of EU-wide monitoring framework, but I will come back to the EU Soil Observatory towards the end of my presentation. And finally, there is a mission SOIL as a main tool for implementation for achieving these policy objectives and for engagement and engagement of all relevant actors and for leveraging resources. You saw this information in on a different slide in introductory presentation. So the main objective, overarching objective of the mission is to set up 100 living labs and lighthouses to lead the transition towards healthy soils by 2030. And this is backed up by 8 mission-specific objectives that you can see on the screen, like reducing desertification, preventing erosion, reducing soil pollution, also reducing EU global footprint on soils, soil literacy, and so on. And the mission is being implemented through 4 building blocks, starting with the research innovation program that aims to fill in previously identified knowledge gaps, like on soil pollution, like on circular economy, soil biodiversity, carbon farming. Then we have a building block on living lives and lighthouses. You get a taste of it also in the introductory presentation. So it's a network of real life sites for co-creation, for development, for demonstration and upscaling solutions for soil health improvement. We have a building block on soil monitoring that aims to contribute to improving, harmonizing soil monitoring across Europe. And finally, a building block on soil literacy and communication and citizens engagement that aims to increase the awareness of importance of soil. And if I may just anecdote, in the elevator coming here, I met a mister that's traveling the world on a bike trying to raise awareness of importance of soil. So you can talk with him also after our presentations to hear his perspective on that. Now, going back to the mission, the definition of living labs and lighthouses, there is a quite lengthy definition in a mission implementation plan. And one part of you can see below. So they are user-centered, place-based, and transdisciplinary innovation ecosystems. But we can also put it in a really nice, simple words and say that they are real-life places to test, to develop, to demonstrate, and upscale innovative solutions for soil health. There are few important aspects of living labs under the mission SOIL. First of all, they should be real-life sites in rural urban areas covering all land uses. They should involve multiple stakeholders, including end users, including farmers, what Carlos also said in his presentation, in co-design, in testing and monitoring evaluation of solutions. The objective is to co-create and test solutions that are adapted to local conditions. And this also links to what Carlos said, because we have a diversity of pedoclimatic conditions, we have a diversity of social economic context and cultural realities, and we need solutions that are adapted to such diversity. And maybe just for information, that mission living labs are specific in a way that they are set up at regional or sub-regional level. So they bring together 10 to 20 experimental sites, which should be like individual farm, forest, or a mine, or a brownfield, or urban park, and so on. And at the other hand, we have lighthouses, which are, again, put it in a simple words, places for demonstration of good practices, innovative solutions that have been developed within a mission living labs. So the objective here is to help the adoption of sustainable practices by inspiring land users through peer-to-peer learning, through knowledge exchange. So where we are with the living labs, I'm showing you the map with the first wave of first 25 mission SOIL living labs from the from the call from 2023, where you can see that they are mostly located in Southern Europe, and predominantly focusing on agriculture. And I'm showing you this because this was actually important for creation of our future or preparation of future calls, because we are preparing future calls so that future living labs are complementing the existing network in terms of, again, pedoclimatic conditions, in terms of land uses, and in terms of soil health challenges. Now with the living labs from 2020 work program 2024, they are kicking off just now. We are at 45 living labs, and we are actually on a track with our objectives. We have a number of projects, portfolio projects of more than 60 projects funded from 21 to 24. There's a link to Project Hub, so you can invite you to take a look. And they're gradually covering 8 all mission-specific objectives and closing knowledge gaps. We have 5 projects clusters that facilitate exchange and cooperation among projects. We have cluster on data and knowledge, cluster on indicators and monitoring, on communication, stakeholder engagement, on soil pollution and business models and investment. We have open calls. You will hear more about it further on. And we have also, we are working on a work program 26. This is just to give you an idea of diversity of topics that we are dealing with under the mission, like carbon farming, like soil pollution and restoration, soil biodiversity, circular economy. I have to mention, because Carlos is here, we have a project on roadmaps for the mission soil. He's the coordinator of the project. We have projects on desertification, spatial planning, soil water nexus, and living labs, of course. So just to tell you that you will get a presentation, of course, after the event, and behind each logo you have a link to the projects. So I invite you to take a look to projects that may be interesting to you. Now I go back to soil health monitoring as a third building block. And for this, we have an EU Soil Observatory, which I mentioned is a long-term data knowledge hub on soils, and it is led by the Commission Joint Research Center. So here you can see the number of objectives of the EU Soil Observatory, starting with what I mentioned previously, support to EU policy, also support to development of EU-wide soil monitoring. The objective is also to monitor soil health, and this is being done through a soil degradation dashboard, which has indicators on 19 soil degradation processes. And Mirko was mentioning EU's strategy actions tracker that was developed by the EU Soil Observatory and DG Environment. One of the objectives is also to enhance European Soil Data Center, also to support citizens' engagement, and last but certainly not the least, is to carry out and support soil research both in-house and in collaboration with the mission soil. And final, last building block is on soil literacy, communication, citizen engagement. So first of all, we have a mission soil platform that has all relevant information about the mission. It also provides a project hub. It has a mission progress dashboard and so on. We have a mission manifesto, which is a voluntary, non-binding document, a commitment to be signed by public and private organizations, individual citizens that want to support mission-specific objectives. There are also mission mirror groups that support implementation of the mission on a national level. We have in place now mission soil ambassadors that are working on country-specific societal outreach. And we have a flagship event, European Mission Soil Week. Also, last but not least, we also have a number of projects on soil literacy, regional, local engagement, cultural, creative industries, soil advice, citizen science. And my last slide is also an invitation, and also links well to what start of our discussions in the economical perspective. So we have a European Mission Soil Week coming now at the beginning of November in Denmark, organized with the Danish presidency of the Council. And the main thematic focus is business models and investment in soil health. So you have a link below, and I invite you to take a look and register for the event and join us in Denmark. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. And of course, if you have questions, happy to answer.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions in the room?
It's turned on. What always strikes me when I see all the maps, I see the map of Erin and map of the soil living labs, is that there is a blind spot in the Central and Eastern European countries. And I wanted to ask, like, whether
Yeah.
Croatia, but Slovakia is
No, no,
always the gray zone.
I think Croatia is now, it's Western Balkans, so Croatia should, but yeah, okay. please
Anyway,
continue, yeah.
what I wanted to ask you whether how come that the projects are not attractive for those countries, whether you have some explanation, and also what the Commission is doing or what the Commission can do to better engage with the Central and Eastern European countries or communities, so that we also see projects in those countries, meaning that we would also have more data coming from the Central Eastern European countries supporting the policy goals that we have.
No, it's a valid question. Thank you so much. And I fully agree that we need, it's Western Balkans, that part that's missing. First of all, the calls and the calls are open to, of course, to member states, but also Horizon Europe associated countries in Western Balkans, so they can participate. If we see, so we had, for example, I mentioned that the first Living Labs were launched in 2023, because in 21, 22, we had the preparatory actions to pave the ground for these Living Labs. So we had a project that was working only on engagement with the relevant stakeholders in the member states and associated countries. So that was one of our ways to mobilize stakeholders and to mobilize countries that are underrepresented. And as I said, the calls are now being created in a way that they complement the existing network. So meaning that we don't have now a new wave of Living Labs in Southern Europe in member states, but it should expand. So hopefully with this, we would then also cover the part that was not on the map.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a clarification. I didn't understand the difference between the project hubs and project clusters. Among the 60 projects funded from 2021 and 24, there was a slide, before. Yes. Project, yeah.
The project hub is just a place which brings together all mission projects and also other EU-funded projects, so you can see everything that's happening on when it comes to research on soils. And project clusters are actually created just to facilitate exchange, because we have more than 60 projects and they are overlapping with what they are doing. So we wanted to bring them together so they can exchange and maybe to work on complementarities and do something together, and not to create synergies, not to have overlaps and so on. So it's more like just a way of working, project clusters and project hubs for information for external audience.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Jean-Luc. I'm citizen and also part of the Safe Soil movement. Thank you for your presentations first. But you highlight something very important. It's communication. And how are you going to scale up those communications on Europe? Because where I'm looking around me and speaking with other citizens, the knowledge of soil degradation is extremely low in our population. So they don't know what really happened there. And regarding the farmers, there is no positive communication at the highest level to show them what benefits they could get from increasing a living soil to improve their revenue. Where is the communication around that? We don't have a TV spot, we don't have radio spot. It's really nothing. So how could you get the support of the citizen of Europe if you don't communicate it on the issue? That's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I fully agree that that's a really important part. And actually, I think we are doing quite a lot. I'll try to elaborate. But it's also something that takes time to increase the awareness on something and to increase public knowledge. I think it's a process that would have to start by changing our education system. So how to reach everybody. So what we are doing at the mission level, I did not put a slide because I thought I had 10 minutes. I cannot go into details. So for now, we participated in more than 4,000 events. So we are all the time engaging, and we are going out there, try to pass on the message of what we are doing and why soil is important. We have this flagship event that I mentioned that brings all relevant stakeholders, including also farmers. Hopefully now in Denmark, also investors, which is also an important part of the story. And then we have what I mentioned, a number of projects that are working on citizens' engagements and soil literacy. So they would then work on a local and a regional level with some educational programs, in schools and so on. So we are working on many different levels in order to increase the awareness of soils. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. We will take one last question from online. Sorry.
Yes, we have few questions from online. Maybe we just take one. The second one is related to the criteria for setting up a living lab, and we have a session afterwards. Maybe we can take it there. The other question is, thanks for the nice overview. Are there any chemical monitoring data, pesticides, PFAS, metals in the currently ongoing activities you just presented? Thanks.
Yes, thank you for your question. We have 5 projects working on soil pollution, on different aspects, on modeling, on also providing tools to decision makers. And they actually, as you can see actually on the slide, there is a cluster on soil pollution. So they just met in June, and they came up with a commitment to do a joint publication that would provide some information. So there will be there is of course data, and it will be something tangible also soon coming out. But for the data also, the main point is always soil observation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to take a coffee break now, and I hope you can continue. For those who couldn't ask their question, I hope you can ask them during the coffee break and continue the exchanges. The coffee break is going to be 15 minutes, so I ask you to slowly come back in 15 minutes. It's at the back of the room, and we will change the time on the slide so you know when to come back. So thank you so much.
We have a very interesting discussion coming up. There were a lot of input already, and would really like to make it a little bit more practical as well. So we have an hour, and we have a number of really interesting speakers and perspectives with us. So I'd really like to welcome you back. And if in the previous session we heard about the state of soils, we heard about some of the policy actions, some of the practical actions that are being taken. We've heard about how important the adoption of the soil monitoring law is, how important follow-up of the soil strategy is. And now we really would like to invite a number of key stakeholders, a number of key researchers to really discuss how the soil monitoring law can contribute to achievement of healthy soils in Europe, and how Soil Mission can help in that effect as well. So we assume that the law is in place, and now we really would like to focus on its implementation, on its application. For the panel, we have it's a very balanced panel, and we have a number of very prominent speakers with us today. And I'll give a very quick introduction, just that you know who it is. You can also see photographs and titles on the slide behind you as well, and our online participants can see that as well. So I have Esther Goltz, just on my right, and Esther is from the Ministry of Agriculture, National Resources and Environment of Walloon region in Belgium, and she's really been working on soil protection for 16 years and is very much involved in coordination of the Belgian position. And those of us who live in Belgium do know that coordinating Belgian position is not an easy task. So welcome, Esther. We have Angèle Liagre. I hope I pronounced the name almost. How would you pronounce your name?
Liagre. Yeah.
Angel is working for the representation in Brussels of 4 cities from Northern Netherlands, Groningen, Assen, Emmen, and Leeuwarden. And particularly, she will share with us some of the insights, particularly coming from the city of Leeuwarden, that's been very, very active on soil monitoring and on research in general, with all those centers of research excellence that you have in the city. Christine de Schamperlijn. Close. Christine, how would you pronounce your name? Apologies. Right. Okay. Good. So you're used to it. Well, so no offense intended, but very much welcome. And Christine is joining us from Pan Europe, so the large NGO dealing with Pesticides Action Network, a European NGO that is really working to replace hazardous pesticides by ecologically sound alternatives. And Christine is also working for the Soils for Europe project and coordinate think tank on soil pollution and restoration, so perspective of the civil society. And we're also very happy that Dr. Elvi Chansi was able to join us. Thank you. And that we've heard about some of those other projects that are being implemented across Europe. And Dr. Chansi is coming from Lilas for Soils project, and is particularly coming from a living lab in some of those important experience around management of carbon and carbon sequestration. So thank you very much for being able to join us today, and we'll have giving the floor to we are here also trying to give push and count some of the disinformation that's being spread around Europe via the developments and negotiations on the soil monitoring law. So I really like to hear from all of your perspective on the problem of unhealthy soils in Europe and how forthcoming soil monitoring law can bring about change. What needs to happen for that to happen?
Yeah, sorry, just a technical point. The colleagues online are not really listening. So if I can ask all the speakers to use the mic, you can press the right button and speak close to the mic so that we allow all participants to hear. Thank
Very good. No, thank you for that. Very good. So we have our microphones. We'll try to speak closer. Thank you very much for the reminder. Thank you. So yes, so any of your perspectives on the state of the soils and how the forthcoming soil monitoring law. I guess we can maybe start on the further right from me. So with Dr. Chansi, please.
Hello, I hope that works. Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. I'm representing Lilas for Soils, and I am at the Greek Carbon Farming Living Lab. So the first point will be on this approach, and I would like to share with you that in our activities we have as main objective the farmers not to be as end users, but to be core of the transition. So what we believe that in soil monitoring law should emphasize in the part of living labs, and in our case for carbon farming practices, is that to build the trust. So yeah, so, to build the trust and have the farmers at the very front of the transition, and have all those practices that at the end of the day we can deliver healthy have already now. A lot of work to monitor, to improve, and to validate all those that this is from our side as a very beginning of our activities as Center of the Farmers.
Much. Yes, I think, Christine, if we'll go from the living lab to civil society, to the city, to the country. So,
yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to start with again underlining how importance of that, but I think it's important to again highlight the very high that 1 gram of soil, for example, can contain billions of organisms, thousands of species. The complexity and the diversity is really enormous, and is also linked, of course, to the many functions soil have. So it's crucial for example, water quality it's essential. A large part of why our water quality is not in a good status is because of soil pollution, of course. It's essential for food production. And these complex interactions, they are still being further uncovered. Like there is still a lot we don't know. But we know that, for example, the soil microbiome is essential in supporting plants to fight pathogens, to make nutrients available. So this complexity is very important to always take into account. And yeah, I think in that regard, it's a very big problem that almost 70% of soils is not in a good shape. And I think what adds to that is that the problem is, of course, still very much underestimated, because right now, for example, the cocktail effects of, for example, pollutants, they're not taken into account. We only measure a fraction of pollutants right now. You have the problem of emerging pollutants, and then many pollutants we don't even know of yet. So we know from the information out there how big the problems are, and in many ways what needs to be done. But we also have to know that the problem is probably still much worse than we know now. So in that regard, it's key also for human health, because the links with, for example, soil pollution are clear and keeping further unraveled. For example, the links between the soil microbiome, human microbiome, also neurological conditions. There's many links between pollution and also soil pollution with human diseases. So in this regard, in this context, of course, it's essential to have a EU framework on soil, which is long overdue. So it's a very important step. That being said, we and also many other organizations very much regret it didn't go much further, as what is needed is clear and in many ways. And so we miss that in the current proposal, although it's a very important step. We miss that it also doesn't tackle better what needs to be done now, and really focuses also on prevention of further soil pollution. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure the mics are working really well. Maybe I will actually start with just a small disclaimer. You were supposed to have my colleague Jose Hoekstra coming today, but joke aside, he has been retained in the Netherlands for some PFAS emergencies, so quite appropriate for the topic of today. So you're stuck with me, apologies, but I will do my best to provide you with some concrete inputs from Leeuwarden, maybe actually to give you some context and maybe to check, do you actually know where Leeuwarden is? Have you heard of it? So still a few hands. Maybe to place it on the map, we were the little very dark red dot on your map in the northern Netherlands. Leeuwarden is quite a medium-sized city from about 120,000 inhabitants, and it's actually located in the area with the most diffuse emissions of PFAS, amongst others. So obviously soil monitoring, soil health has been quite an issue for the past years, and it has been quite active on it. This is also due, for instance, or like notably to the fact that we have a military NATO base really close to the city. So there you go. And obviously the soil monitoring law for us, it's really a welcome change, because we do see that monitoring is very, very key. It can provide us with useful data, with useful knowledge to prevent further leakages. So really it is a positive change that we welcome. Nevertheless, and I think I can go in further into details later on, but it doesn't come without its challenges, but let's talk about it later.
Very good. No, we'll definitely come to the challenges. Thank you. Yeah, and we'll continue still going higher up geographically, but closer to where we are. So we would really like to hear from you as well, please.
So good morning also, everybody. Thank you for inviting us, and I'm happy to be part of the discussion around that important topic. Actually, those kind of discussion were already taking place a long time ago, because soil degradation is not new. So we have already talked about pollution, soil pollution, maybe not in the same way as today, because there are emerging pollutants, but still pollution is one of the first trigger for having a legal development of that issue in other types of regulations. Then also erosion, organic matter. I mean, from the research area, those are not new topics, except maybe for soil biodiversity. So what is also the problem, I would say, is that we are all talking about those topics within our own sector, within our own background, and we don't have an integrated vision of that. And what is very nice in that proposal of the soil monitoring law is that we get a common vision on soil health. Of course, soil health is a terminology that is really not familiar for researchers in the area, and usually we are talking about soil quality, but it's a good communication step to move forward outside the society and the other stakeholders that we need to convince of the importance of having soils in healthy shape. And so that is really a good point for that law, even if it's really possible to improve it, that is for sure. But what we need is a real first step, and we need also to see it not as a standalone legislation, but rather as a spine that helps the other strategies and other legislations or initiatives to move forward, because soil is part of the solution. And so that positive view of soil, so soil providing ecosystem services or soil helping us for addressing challenges, this is a key move in mindset. Because, and we talked about it, about incentives earlier, and also the fact that we need to play between penalties and incentives. But to get incentive and to make people come along with us towards the same vision of healthy soil by 2050 is a real, step forward that we hope will happen. But we are now in a situation where it is adopted, right? That's what you said.
No, we're definitely keeping the fingers crossed and really calling on co-legislators to really maintain their reputation as a responsible co-legislator and seal the deal and honor the agreement that has been made. As also Christine mentioned, it doesn't go far enough, but it is a step in the right direction. And also, just as we've also heard from quite a few, it offers a number of opportunities needs to be done. But I really would like to come back to Angela as well with the point around the challenges, and you addressed some statements. We do know they do exist. We also know that they will continue. Big question around the engagement of stakeholders, land ownership, what have you. But from the perspective of the city, what particular challenges you would like to highlight, and maybe also any pointers for solutions, how to overcome them as well?
Well, the main obvious one is resources, capacity, finance. Like the ultimate responsibility of implementing these monitoring systems, it all often comes to the local level, to the municipalities, to the public authorities. And let's take the example of Leeuwarden. They have 2 colleagues. It's quite a small municipality. They are exhausted with everything they have to do about this. So, and when we talk about the new law, for instance, what does it mean? Is it extra rules? Is it things that they have to implement in addition to what they are already doing? Does it actually come with extra funding and support from the national level to do so? Just a PFAS test, for instance, or even a microplastics test, it's more than 2,000 euros in the Netherlands. So how do you cover this kind of cost? So there's already an issue with capacity and resources. The other one as well is more linked to knowledge. Like you have a lot of knowledge available in Europe. You mentioned the soil observatory, for instance, but how does it come to the ground where it is most needed? Actually, if I mention the soil observatory to my colleagues, I'm not sure they actually know what it is. And can they actually use the knowledge that is generated? Do they have the time to integrate it into their own work? Probably not. So there is a big issue about how to share these good practices that are being developed around Europe. There is an issue about generating as well more knowledge, do more research based on specific local context. Their solutions, well, the soil mission is a good example. For now, it's only supposed to last until 2030. What comes afterwards, I don't know. But also some program like LIFE, like the more like city-to-city exchange or Interreg programs that can really help transfer this knowledge and this inspiration between regions, between cities, but also with other stakeholders, including farmers, including firms and companies. That could really be useful. So these are some of the challenges, and but the implementation really remains for us the biggest struggle, how to have an efficient monitoring system that is appropriate for the substances that we know of today, but that is also good for the substances that are going to come in the future as well.
Thank you. Thanks. I don't know if any of the fellow panelists would like to react anything on any of the other challenges, and then maybe also on some of the solutions, like, for example, what can living labs really help us with addressing some of the points that have been raised?
Well, yes, I would like to point out some also challenges that in the part of the policy and citizen science should be supported. In the Living Labs activities, what we try to do is to build the trust between the stakeholders, and there are very diverse. The diversity of the stakeholders is one of the challenges that it is really important, because also we have a very limited time to produce the outcome. So we need a lot of activities to bring together all the people, and we need a lot of time to come to this common sense of the problem. So one of the most important things is how, in the perspective of the policymakers, how we can reduce this time, and with very specific campaigns, and to inform people why it is really important to have healthy soils. So this common sense, it's really it's a huge issue to find a solution find a solution against this challenge of the time. So one of the points is this one. And another point in terms of challenges, and I would like to state it, is that well, we have farmers that they not just convinced to apply the carbon farming management practices because they see healthy soils, and also they see other benefits like the production, the yield production, and we have some first inputs and insights for these specific issues. But what we have as problem is what it was mentioned at the very beginning of this event. It is the really unstable environment that, for example, we have farmers that apply those practices, but at the very same time, we have extreme weather events that every effort could be lost. So also what we need here is a very strong policy framework to support everybody, but also those people and those farmers that choose to move to move to more healthy and sustainable production system. So this is another challenge, really, really important in this frame of healthy soils. And I think that living labs, if we achieve in those approaches with the common sense and a very strong policy framework to support people that choose the transition, I think we can achieve the mission, the vision for healthy soils.
No, thank you so much. It's been a very, very, very useful point, and also really bringing the perspective of the farmers as well. Even though the soil monitoring law is not setting any obligations on individual farmers, it is setting obligations on member states. And we'll go to Esther and then immediately come to you. That would okay. And as a member state representative, you know, Mirko showed us the timeline, all those things that you would need to do from next year, transposing it, getting everybody together, really getting farmers on board, getting all the research input into it. So are you excited about this? What are you dreading most? Is there anything that can help you?
Yes, we are excited about it, that is for sure. That will be also quite a challenge for the member states, and also especially to organize ourselves with the different colleagues from other ministries that are involved in the system, and that need to also take this new issue within their own process decision making of it. So I mean, that's a big work, but what is nice is that now, if we have that law, we can move forward and show where we want to go to exactly. And there are, like, let's say, two parts in that law. First is the monitoring one. So all the time when you go to colleagues or what, they need to know, okay, what is the problem? What is the extent? What kind of information do we need to take into account? So up to now, it was a bit scarce, I would say. So with that framework, even if it could be improved, that is for sure, and harmonized better, but at least it's a good first step to move forward. And what also is important is that we can show them that we can bring good information for their own problems, actually. Yeah. When we are talking about issues from climate change and drought or floods, we know that soil are playing a big role in that. So it's linked to land planning, which is a touchy issue, and it wasn't tackled too far away in the soil monitoring law, but still it is in it. So that's a very great achievement, I would say. You don't imagine what was the work behind to take back land take in the system. So that is very important, and especially that part where we are losing agricultural soils for urbanization. So this is quite sensitive, but still here we want to bring data, solution, and work together towards it. And then the second part, beyond that monitoring part, is then the support to resilience. So that was also a big discussion because at first it was sustainable soil management, but then that word became a taboo. And so we need to talk about soil resilience. But this also is the idea that we are all in the same boat. And so we need to move forward together and have some support from all the actors, so research community, the technical community, and also the commission. And so what we will need as a member state is all those documents and tools for support. So yeah, we are moving forward. It's exciting time, but it's quite challenging.
Very much for that. And I really also would like to hear if Christine is also excited, because as NGOs, together with citizens, together with progressive businesses, others, you know, played quite a crucial role in supporting both the strategy and the law, and really trying to get everybody together around it. So what are you thinking about it? Any reaction to anything that you've heard so far?
Yes, so we are indeed very happy that this first step is there, and to just name a few positives, it will clearly develop much needed data. So this is very positive. It will foster cooperation, also independent research, which will help address the current big knowledge gap still there. And it will also help create a supportive framework for land managers. So this is all very positive. The problem is we find that, or what we very much regret is, for example, the fact that sustainable soil management principles were actually removed, any true obligations in that regard. While that's of course very much needed. And I also think we should actually look at this in a positive way, that many farmers across Europe, for example, they know very well how harmful pesticides are. They erode a substantial part of our biodiversity, also certainly of soil biodiversity. They pollute our water. So many are leading the way in ambitiously reducing pesticides, for example, and other agrochemicals, really restoring soil health and seeing a lot of benefits in climate change mitigation and adaptation, better water infiltration, for example, but also while keeping good yields and often higher profits. So while these solutions are there is clearly a gap in implementation, and therefore we regret that the law was not stronger in that, because it has been said here today. So the problem is often that the information doesn't reach everywhere, that there's more need of someone in the middle to do the communication, and living labs will be very important in that. So for the law to be, for the directive to be as effective as possible, we think it will be key, for example, regarding soil management, to also make the link with other legislations like the Common Agricultural Policy. Member states also have a lot of room there to take their responsibility and fund those practices which will be needed to restore our soils. So this, of course, should be a main part of the solution, also in financing what is needed. And then another, if I may, another aspect that we regretted was weekend was, for example, the soil descriptors, the different indicators used. So we find that, for example, the monitoring of substances, it remains too limited. But what is positive is that there will be a watch list developed that member states can at least take into account. But there we feel it will be key that will also be used as ambitiously as possible, because of course, there are costs involved in monitoring, but the cost of not knowing what is there and be able to prevent will far exceed that. And also, I think it's also at a technical level and practical level, it will be important to, for example, regarding biodiversity descriptors, to also try at least also regional to find, to also work together on that, because if, for example, everyone will now choose different descriptors, it would be a regretful missed opportunity to not be able to exchange more information. So the member states can do a lot there, and I think it should also really involve prevention, so sustainable soil management, but also the courage to ban certain very problematic substances that really needs to be phased out because, for example, of their persistence, like PFAS and also PFAS pesticides. Because just to conclude this, we are still like in our soils when we monitor pesticides, so we find mixtures almost everywhere. And we also often, mostly what is seen is that, for example, DDT, which was banned for decades already, it's still there. So the solutions we make, the decisions we make now really impact the future. And we are still dealing with pollution with an historic legacy. So it will make life easier to work much more at source and work at prevention. Thank you.
No, thank you. Very, very, very useful points. I hope some of that has provoked some of the comments from the audience, or maybe a particular question. So feel free to raise your hand. We'll also feel free to specify who you are addressing it to on the panel. And please introduce yourself, your organization, if you're here on the behalf of the organization. So the floor is yours. I really hope this provoked some reactions. Yes, we already have somebody who is ready to break the floor, please.
Good morning. Well, I hope it's still morning. Thank you very much for the panel discussion. It was, it's very interesting. I've got a question for Esther and Monica. I'm from the European Parliament. For those who don't know, I and Marketa, we've been working on the law for quite some time, quite intensely. So we are, I think, also part of the I mean, we are the people partly to blame or not to blame for the result. We try to do our best. I've got a then question for Esther. Considering the stage and also the whole context, I think it's quite clear that the law will be as strong as the member states will make it, because it's a directive, because it just shows the way where the law should be, in a way, moving, where the health of soil should be moving. I was wondering whether you think that there is a possibility on the council side that there would be, for example, a formation of countries driving the change or being more ambitious, like the REACH-up countries when it comes to the REACH legislation, whether something similar is appearing on the council side, or whether, for example, Belgium would be in a mood to create a group of countries that would be pushing a bit higher. Well, I don't know. So I don't know if you can comment on that or not, but it would be interesting to know. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I mean, we had many discussions between member states during the council negotiation to reach some kind of agreement. From that discussion, you can see that member states are starting from diverse starting points. So indeed, some are feeling more comfortable with some parts of the directive, the other ones not so much, and are expecting the directive to drive internally all the system. So the level of ambition that was reached was a bit, reflecting the in-between possibility. It doesn't prevent countries to go beyond, that is for sure. That's a directive. Hopefully, it's not a regulation, it's a directive. So that means that there are still margin of maneuver, let's say, or some flexibilities. But one thing I think should be done is not necessarily creating outside of the system some kind of group promoting the, let's say, the ambition of the text, but use the mechanism provided by the directive to do it. So there was a strong will, at least from the council side, to make sure that we would be able to discuss with the Commission and the member states, have some real collaboration, so avoiding somehow a top-down approach, but having more input in that process, and really trying to extract from those discussions what is the best for everybody. And so I think the ambition can be coming from that setting, actually. And because some countries will be showing that it's working, and so the others will see, okay, but you are able to do it. We are authorities. Now we understand how you do it. So maybe it's a good example. So I would say, yes, there will be some forwarder in Belgium might be on some topics, but that's really a collective discussion that should be happening in that setting. And I think this is important.
So do we understand you correctly? We have friends of soil already in the council, and
yes, there are friends of soil everywhere.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please. I think we have a hand here.
So just to build on Monica's question, doesn't this create, or isn't there the potential to create in Europe a 2, 3, 4 different types of velocities? Marketa was already, for example, mentioning the fact that we don't have living labs, or we don't have enough initiative from Eastern countries. Now the mention was, well, maybe the richest countries can drive this and create a better system. I'm really honestly scared that this creates just a system where it's unachievable, whatever it's good, and then we create just as Europe and different velocities, because we don't have a common funding mechanism for this. So there is no common funding mechanism for this. And the risk of us having, I don't know, Greece, that's my question, is there a risk for us to have Greece or, I don't know, Bulgaria having a really small system, or a system that is dependent on others, and then, yeah, I don't know, Belgium?
I think that's clear. Thank you. I think as probably you can start, but also if anybody would like to chip in, please, because it's a very relevant question.
It depends on how you drive the system and what are the means you put behind. I think that Soil Mission is a big budget mission. It's one of the 5 missions of Horizon Europe, so some quite budget behind. So the thing is to really be able to drive that means into where are the needs. I know that there are parts that don't pop up on the map, and in Belgium as well. So I wouldn't say that we would be front runner in any situation. But the thing is that the reality, and it was said by my colleague here, we lack within at least authorities, we are lacking human resources to follow properly the system. And we see that there are many possibilities outside and within the research area, within the living labs. And actually, we would like those to kind of work with us and provide us the time that we cannot dedicate to that, and sort of the way to combine those means that could work for any member states, and especially also maybe for the ones in the Eastern country. When I see, maybe just to give you the experience from that exercise we tried to do during the council negotiation on how to design the monitoring scheme and how many sampling location should be done within each country. I mean, the ones who participated, it was almost all the countries, even the ones without so easy access to expertise to do it. But we used like EGP Soil network that was working on such kind of question of design, and they provided the support to those countries actually, so that they were able to jump in the exercise and to also make their own assessment on what how to move forward with that. So I think we need to really find those win-win situation without being exhausting ourselves in the system, and we need to rely on those and fit them at the right place. But this is a challenge. I'm not saying it's easy.
I'm allowed to react as well and zoom in a bit on the Dutch situation. Like, I think what you fear might be very true. Like, we were talking a lot about policymakers and the role of the member states. Like, one big concern of ours is what the Dutch ministry in the end will decide. Even though we have a good relationship from the local level, still Leeuwarden is from The Hague and even further away from what happens in Brussels. So what the Dutch ministry decides in the end might not be what Leeuwarden wants and is also capable of implementing in the end. And I think there is this really big issue of finding like ambitious or implementing an ambitious monitoring framework within a political context, at least in the Netherlands, which is characterized by a traumatizing nitrogen crisis for the past years, which led to the rise of a farmers' party, which is, let's just be honest, not very much in favor of this kind of law. And we have elections coming up in November. And if it's again the right-wing parties and far right-wing parties that are in the coalition, then the ambition might be less strong than what we would wish it to be. So how do you bring all the stakeholders together and find a compromise that actually maybe is dissatisfying to everyone, but still bring the best for the common good? That's really the challenge. And I think it's going to be very much national based on also political context.
Well, that is a compromise of compromise that, you know, nobody's happy, but it is getting us closer. Absolutely. Thank you. Do we have a question online by any chance? No. So we have one. Yeah, we have a question there. Thank you. And if you can introduce yourself, please. Thanks.
Hi, thank you. So Monica, volunteer for the Safe Soil movement. If I'm just picking the thread, because we're talking about lack or limited resources in terms of finance or people and the distance to the different, if I just very simply translate it, it's a matter of willingness, right? Because it's a matter of setting priorities. The money will go, the resources will go to what is deemed important. And there's always a difference in what is that top 3 or whatever number of priorities. So I'm just thinking out loud, who is the ultimate driver of what sets these priorities? We can keep on going, higher up the ladder. And I'm just thinking, is it really the citizen that actually determines these priorities ultimately? Because we can, try to see that it's the king, but it's not. It's really the whole government is or should be on behalf of the citizens.
So while we are working on these hierarchies, isn't it maybe a parallel avenue to really empower the citizen to say, this is important, take this in your priorities, allocate the resources needed to this, talk to each other, and just make it happen?
Very good. I think, yeah, that's almost a concluding statement of what we are trying to say. I don't know if anybody, because this wasn't really a question, but if anybody would like to offer anything in support or, yeah.
Yes, no, yeah, I think that's very important indeed. And we also know that the voice of citizens, I mean, they do express themselves, of course, through many different, in many different ways, through consultations. And then regarding pesticides, we had the European Citizens Initiatives already too on that. So in all consultations, for example, regarding environment, we see it coming back that it's very important for EU citizens, yeah, how the stages of their environment, the need to improve it. Yeah, I think what needs to be done is also really take all these consultations always in account, and yeah, and really base decisions also in the public interest. And on top of that, yeah, we think it's also important that all legislation is always science-based and accompanied by both impact assessments and really stakeholder consultations. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Both for Esther and Angela mentioned how important living labs are, how they're really relying on the input from living labs coming at the right time, etc. Is there anything that you think, living labs can really do that? And also, obviously you are working and engaging stakeholders. We also have heard how important it will be to have farmers on board. Anything from the approaches you've tried you would like to highlight?
Yes, I would like to have a couple of comments also to the previous questions and what we discussed. I will agree that it is a matter of how we see the things in the terms of the applying the policy targets. And what we have here, we have the mission with very specific targets. But and for the soil monitoring law, we have those targets in national level. But we could also consider the regional approach. And there the living labs are very strong because in the living labs we have the solutions, we have the innovations, but in the living labs we are solving the problems to implement the solutions in the real life time and context. So this is very important because if we also consider the regional approach and how we can address and we can make those indicators from the soil monitoring law to produce the data and to translate the data into the policy, and starting from another perspective of regions and municipalities and the living labs and the lighthouses to be very in a way that give we have overcome the problems from the solutions. This is a very important thing in order to conclude to the final reportings that in national level we need. And also another very important thing is about the first comment I made for how we build the trust. We also need those reportings and those monitoring systems to be validated based in very specific methodologies that are, for example, ISO-based or based on harmonized data, so we can speak the same language, so we can build the trust among the different actors and the stakeholders. So to conclude on that, I think that having the living labs and producing all the knowledge in the very in an approach from a bottom-up approach, maybe we can deliver faster the data and all the requirements that the soil monitoring law needs to conclude on the mission targets. So,
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I think we just about have time for one more question. So very happy that there is one more hand that has just gone up. So please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Maurits Voogd. I work for Eurofins. We do soil testing in many different laboratories around the world. I'm very pleased to hear much of the things I've heard today. And I think it's amazing that we have all the living labs, but at the same time, we have 100 living labs and we have hundreds of thousands of farmers. And I think the real impact is made at the farmer level and not per se at the living lab, which is a stepping stone. I found it very interesting what Christine was saying about can we link this to the Common Agricultural Policy, because that's actually where a lot of money is flowing. And in the end of the day, the majority of the parameters that need to be measured for the soil monitoring law are directly useful for a farmer. So a pesticide is interesting, but the farmer can't really act on it. But a lot of the other things farmers can act on. It would perhaps be an idea to link this to the Common Agricultural Policy. My question is, are those discussions ongoing? Is this an idea? What's happening? I don't know who can answer it, but I think it's a good question.
It's a good question. And obviously a question about the engagement of the farmers, etc. Yes, so I think Christine, maybe if you can take that on.
Yes, so there is the proposal for the CAP post 27 has been published in July, and so by the Commission, and so now in the coming months, there will be discussion in the Council and the Parliament on this proposal. But yeah, so we fully agree. The CAP should provide the needed funding to really implement the practices needed to restore soil health. And in this proposal, a few things change compared to the current CAP. So in the conditionality in many ways weakens, and we very much regret that. There are a few positives, like the option to really fund at farm level transitions. So this is something we fully support, because that's what's needed indeed, like that you have a well-founded plan to really transition your system to more sustainability, to restoration of soil health, and then really provide the funds for it. What is, we're still analyzing the details of the proposal, but what is missing there, for example, is really dedicated funding to that. So there is now that member states need to provide these tools, for example, also in general on environmental and climate measures. But what is lacking is that there is ring-fenced budget for that. And this is, of course, one of the key aspects we will advocate on with many others, because that's what the CAP should exactly do, fund the practices needed, not practices that lead us further from restoring our soils. And maybe linked also to that, there's, of course, many other policies that need much better implementation. So soil health, soil monitoring law will be essential in providing this common framework for exchange of information. But next to that, you, for example, have the Sustainable Use of Pesticides Directive, and it's well known that implementation has been lacking, and one of the obligations is implementation of integrated pest management. But so hopefully this big gapping implementation can also be partly tackled by the soil monitoring law by fostering this room for better cooperation, exchange of information, and yeah, to finalize maybe independent advisory services, for example, that's an obligation within the Sustainable Use of Pesticides Directive, also within the CAP. But we see in practice, like you say, like there are so many farmers, and clearly not everyone is having access to this independent advice. And we also see that when that's there, for example, in EU projects like IPM Works, when there's really a hub working together with a coordinator and peer-to-peer learning, that really works. So this is one of the key aspects that the CAP should also ensure, this access to independent advice. Yeah, thank you.
No, very good, very good. Thank you. I won't even attempt to summarize this very, very, very rich discussion. There were a lot of really, really important points made. I heard about the importance of knowledge and the importance of having the common language and having the same definitions, and that's in a way what the soil monitoring law will be potentially providing. I have heard the need for resources, both increased capacity, financial resources, that all links to the political will or the lack of that we sometimes have on our topics. We have heard about the role of citizens and the role of communication and education and bringing all on this together. But what I've also heard is that there is the spirit of collaboration. There is the role. We know what needs to be done. We now even have a pathway of how to get there. We know there will be challenges. There will be plenty of challenges along the way, but nobody's giving up and saying that this is not something that we should embark or shouldn't even attempt. We'll just try to do it step by step with the support of the living labs, with the support of all the communities that are based here to really give those healthy soils as soon as we can, because that's what we really need for our survival, for our economy, for everything, for biodiversity. So thank you so much for this. And I think I'll maybe just finish, we have 1 minute, so I'll just give the floor as a concluding remark to everybody, just in 2-3 words, your big wish for the SML, or your big wish for common agricultural policy, or your big wish for some of the living labs that needs to continue. So really, we'll just finish with your 4 big wishes in a couple of words. And I don't know who would like to start.
Who wants to start?
Sure.
I think Christine already ready. I see the sparkle in the
No,
eye.
no. I'm not sure. It's a big pressure. One wish, but okay. I wish, of course, that the soil monitoring directive it gets through, and that then the implementation will be as ambitious as possible, as this is really a chance to do something that is much needed, and we cannot really afford not to. So and many solutions are there. It will provide more knowledge that is needed to go further. So the implementation at member state level will be key, and yeah, we hope that will be as ambitious as possible.
Very good. Thank you.
I can go next. I would wish really for more capacity and financial support for municipalities, but also I think a point you highlighted as well, we really need to work more on prevention as well. Beyond monitoring, remediation, prevention is really key, like from the source, making sure there are no more leakages of this kind of terrible substances in our soil.
Absolutely. And then your colleague wouldn't necessarily be prevented from coming to this panel and fighting PFAS somewhere.
Exactly.
Yes, very good. I don't know if, Angela, would you like to? Yes.
Yeah. So I cannot say that I would wish the soil monitoring law to be adopted, that is for sure, because it's a very strong trigger. But I really wish that we are building more and more bridges between the different stakeholders with a huge awareness raising on soil importance. So I would say we were talking about citizens, but if you go outside and talk to citizens, I'm sure that not many people are just thinking about soils. Also, because they don't know what is behind that. And so I think I wish a stronger awareness raising among our society around soil protection.
Very clear. Thank you.
Well, what I really wish is this huge challenge of living labs to achieve to keep open this and active these open spaces for co-creation and design together all the requirements for healthy soils, and just you implied it, the One Health approach somehow. So yes, this is what I wish.
Very good. No, thank you very much. I think our panelists all deserve a good round of applause. Thank you so much for. And also applause to you for being such a great audience. Thank you. And Karen knows what we're doing next. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks to all the panelists. Thanks to Sergey for the moderation. Thanks to all the good questions from in the room and from online. So we will now move to the next and last session of today. It's going to be Tyler Arber, Senior Research and Innovation Coordinator at IFOAM Organics Europe and partner of SOILL-Startup as well. And in line with what SOILL-Startup is doing, he will provide you some information on an overview of funding opportunities for Mission Soil Living Labs. And there will also be some space for questions at the end.
So I believe I'm also stuck with me situation because unfortunately a member of the SOILL-Startup coordination team was going to present, but Delinda had, I believe, maybe a cycling accident and a broken bone. I think she's doing fine, but I just want to wish her and the coordination team all the best and say that I'm from IFOAM Organics Europe. We're a partner in the SOILL-Startup project, and IFOAM EU is the EU umbrella organization for the organic sector. So we represent from producers, farmers, all the way to processors and retailers as well, for those that may not know us. And so I'm going to go quite quickly because I'm also standing between the lunch, which is the next part. So I'll try to be succinct, but want to remind those watching also online that where we're at again in this overall getting to 100 soil health living labs and lighthouses. So phase 2, we've had the second wave now, around 45, I think, is the number of living labs, and call 2025, 2026 calls are the ones that are either have closed, as I'll mention on the next slide, or closing the end of this month. So I'm going to focus more in general on how SOIL, the project, will support going forward in the next year. So just to briefly cover the 2025 funding opportunities, we had this one that is closing the 30th of September. It focuses on brownfield sites. So these are commercial areas, like previously industrial commercial areas that are now in decline. And so that's another focus of the Living Lab. It goes beyond agricultural land. And so this is something, just to give you an idea of the topics from this year. Maybe some people are already involved in consortia that are forming around this. And then one that closed is a 2-stage proposal, unlike the first one. So the first stage of it was due the 4th of September, and this was focused on continental, boreal, and alpine regions. So they do try to, as was mentioned, look at where there are gaps in the representation of living labs and the initiatives there. So this one I'm not going to cover in too much detail, but just to say that you can look online and see that 20 proposals were submitted for this, and they're expecting the evaluation results to come out in December. And so for the next one, a little bit more detail that I'll just say that SOIL tries to help those, especially who are maybe new to the Horizon funding, to European level funding, to bring on new partners and help them to understand what's important, or to join maybe a more experienced partner that's led a project like this before. And so my presentation here is really about what can SOIL do to help support people who are interested and bring in new partners. So this again is the call that's closing soon at the end of this month for the first stage. And then I just wanted to, with a big disclaimer that this is the draft work program, but it was made publicly available, I believe, since the 3rd of June. And so the QR code or this link is where I got directly this information for the upcoming topics. I think these aren't the only calls where people interested in soil health may be interested. There's, for example, one I saw really supporting the same type of bottom-up initiatives in Ukraine. And I believe that a lot of the living labs and other projects could collaborate with, even though it's not one of these two very living lab specific topics. So these are two projects, both with a total budget of expected 24 million euros, funding 2 projects. And each of those projects typically will have 5 or around 5 living labs involved with each. So it's a good number of living labs, around probably 15 to 20 plus more, like in the previous waves. And I believe that this is my last slide, and I just wanted to make maybe a bigger point that, coming back, also one of our guests from the European Parliament mentioned the gaps on the map. And so I think that but the most important thing I can do is try and inspire those partners, for one, who might be a bit timid or unfamiliar with this type of funding or opportunity, to try and be bold and go for joining a project, talking with others. I think maybe one of the best ways to do that is use this resource that we've created in the SOILL-Startup project, which is a stakeholder mapping platform. So it takes a little bit of time to fill in some of the key data and what interests, and then there's some nice features that help to show you other potential partners, or to people coordinators, for example, who are looking for a certain type of partner. So this matchmaking platform you can find on the SOIL Hub, and really joining the SOIL community will really help to make these connections, build those bridges, as was mentioned. And I would also stress for more experienced coordinators, people who have a lot of EU projects experience, to try and look beyond your known networks, to be a bit bold and reach out to new partners, because you may hear from my accent, I'm American, my native country. Unlike the current administration, I do still believe in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I really think we need more of that everywhere, including in this Living Lab network. So I call on you to help make that happen for those listening and attending or watching this online later, perhaps. Yeah, I think that's the last slide. So thanks for your time. Any questions?
Thanks so much. Are there any questions? Do we have questions online?
Yes, we can start with one from online. The question is on the requirements. Is it necessary to have a minimum number of hectares to create a living lab? Can an individual, rather than an organization, initiate the process? What are the minimum criteria or steps required to apply to become a living lab?
So I think I will also welcome my SOIL colleagues to jump in. But what I can say is I would actually point to the resources that are we've developed in the project, because I think it quite clearly, I'm maybe forgetting the name, but there's definitely a monitoring and evaluation guide. So for resources specifically for applicants or those thinking about starting a living lab, that you can see what's basically what goes into making a strong living lab, and therefore a strong living lab proposal. So check out the SOIL website and SOIL Hub, because I think you'll quickly find the relevant answers to those questions. And there definitely are, you need a certain diversity and number of actors to have a successful living lab.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Maybe just to add for the question online, I also endorse Tyler's suggestion to check the soil resources, but also to mention that there are the Mission Soil living labs and also a lot of different other living labs. And in terms of when applying to the calls, always refer to the public text of the call, where there are also some requirements in terms of number of living labs and all these requirements, because at the end it's also like the Horizon Europe rules that apply here. So also check these requirements. There are, of course, it's the Bible in the Horizon Europe.
Marie Latour from Biotech 22 again. We are Bulgarian, and as I commented before, we work on soil restoration. We joined the EU community in looking for projects very recently, just registered on the platform that you saw today. So we are still interested to join a project by 30th of September. So you can look for our company name, and especially in the brownfield field or other living labs for forestry sector for the future calls. Thank you.
Yes, great. Thank you. It's important to put yourself out there, and even at this stage. So if people aren't sure about your organization, feel free to send a message to the organizers of this event, or on the SOIL Hub. You can contact, and we can put you in touch.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
It's maybe a bit a general question, but if I understand it correctly, SOIL is also there to make sure that all the living labs cooperate and learn from each other. Now, we have, of course, the living labs, which are formally funded by the European Union, but there's also a lot of living labs which just exist because people do these things. Are they allowed to participate in the things that SOIL is organizing, or is it like a community of EU-funded living labs? And is there a community of non-EU-funded living labs, and how do they interact with each other?
I can maybe start since I have these mics up here, but so that is an important question, and actually something that I know has been discussed. And how do we approach this? Because we also want to highlight these initiatives as a project. Well, the coordinator is ENOL, the European Network of Living Labs, and so I believe that they have like an annual event, Open Living Lab Day, that involves all types. So definitely beyond Mission Soil, and then even at I can speak to these engagement events. So we together with Feeble, another organic research organization, we had an earlier event where one of the living labs was not an official Mission Soil, but they were still fine having them represented, and it was an Italian living lab lighthouse farm network. So I think there is collaboration. It's almost inevitable, and I don't think we try to separate too much. Is from my experience so far.
Yeah, thanks. And also to complement, indeed, our main target are the living labs funded, the Mission Soil living labs funded at the Mission Soil, but we are also have events and capacity building open with other living labs. For instance, in the pipeline, there is to organize several site visits between the different living labs. We have a soil hub that Joanna presented before, where all the living labs can register and network and connect with other living labs. We are going to launch the Thematic working group in January 2026 on different topics. The topics have not been selected yet because we are doing this need assessment from the first wave of Mission Soil living labs to understand in which topics they want to collaborate on. So this is just a sort of example of how other living labs can join SOIL. And again, as this session is for the support for applicants, we also invite every stakeholders following also online to go on the website and check. We also have a help desk to support for questions for applicants willing to apply to the Living Labs course. So we are here. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tyler. And this brings us to the end of this event. We had a last slide. Oh, I think it's this one. Sorry. So I would like to sincerely thank our speakers, our panelists, everyone who joined this event today, people in the room, people online. And I feel like really together we have really managed to delve into these questions around the important role of soils, but also around policy options and solutions, about this legislation that intends to protect soils, about mission soil objectives and living labs, which aim to put innovative solutions into practice on the ground. So I feel we touched upon many, many topics, and it's always inspiring to see so many different people come together. Everyone contributes with their own perspective. And I would really like to keep these dialogue channels open to continue the conversation, also, of course, by continuing to engage with the SOILL-Startup community. And especially because, of course, as we have heard many, many times today, bringing Europe's soils back to health is not optional, because soils are the basis for overall ecosystem integrity, for resilient societies, and for our collective well-being. And after all these many discussions, I won't keep you much longer, so especially as lunch is being prepared at the back of the room. So I thank you again for being here. And I invite those that are in the room to join us at the back of the room for lunch. I believe the caterer still needs around 5 minutes to finish preparations, but you can also already take a glass of water or some coffee. And yeah, thank you so much for coming.